You know, many newcomers to photography think that knowing about light is only for the pros. And who needs to know about light since modern cameras do such a great job with auto exposure? Well, this simply isn't true. A fundamental understanding of light will give you the freedom to walk into any situation, quickly analyze the light you're dealing with, adjust your camera accordingly, and create a much more evocative image. There are two types of light, specular and diffuse. Specular light is harsh and casts hard shadows. It's usually produced by a single strong light source. For example, the sun on a cloudless day or a lamp without a lampshade. Those will produce specular light. Diffuse light, on the other hand, is spread out and casts soft shadows or no shadows at all. The sun on a cloudy day or a lamp with a lampshade, those will produce diffuse light. Diffuse light is the easiest to work with. Most cameras perform very well in diffuse light, requiring little to no adjustment at all. Specular light, however, produces very bright highlights and very dark shadows, and most cameras simply can't capture the details in both the bright parts and the dark parts at the same time. So if your composition contains specular light, you'll have to decide if you want to see the details in the highlights or in the shadows, and adjust your camera's settings accordingly. We'll cover how to do this in just a bit. Direction of light can be categorized as front, side, or back, relative to your position to the subject. A front light can result in a well-lit subject. A side light can light one side of the subject more than the other, and a backlight will typically create an image where your subject is underexposed. This is sometimes done intentionally as a silhouette. Typically, cameras have three settings for regulating light: ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And all three can be adjusted individually or in tandem when there's too much or too little light on your subject. Remember that when you adjust one, you'll have to adjust one or both of the others to make up for the difference. Think of ISO as your camera's sensitivity to light. Increasing the ISO increases the sensitivity, and decreasing it lowers the sensitivity. However, increasing ISO also increases the graininess of your image, which is something you typically want to avoid. The general rule is to keep your ISO as low as possible and increase it only in low light situations as a last resort. Shutter speed controls how long your camera's shutter stays open while taking a picture. This affects how moving objects will appear in your image. A fast shutter speed appears to stop motion, while a slow shutter speed suggests motion by blurring moving objects. Shutter speeds are measured in fractions of a second, so sometimes it can get a little confusing. To make things easier, just remember that the bigger the number, the faster the speed. And a fast speed stops motion, whereas a slow shutter speed shows motion. One more tip about slow shutter speeds. For anything slower than a 60th of a second, plan on using a tripod or propping your camera against a stationary object. Otherwise, the image could get blurry due to the movement of the camera. The aperture is an opening in a lens that regulates the amount of light. In fact, it's just like the pupil of your eye. When you go from bright light to dim light, your pupil opens up. And when you go from dim light to bright light, your pupil closes down. You can do the same thing with the aperture of your lens. However, adjusting the aperture also affects something called depth of field. You may have noticed that when you look at an object, other objects behind it or in front of it will not be in focus unless you look directly at them. You can test this yourself by closing one eye and holding one index finger close to your face and the other index finger as far away as you can. You'll see that if you look directly at one finger, the other one goes out of focus. However, as you bring your fingers closer and closer together, the effect becomes less pronounced. What you are seeing here is your eye's depth of field. Opening up your aperture narrows the depth of field, and closing it down widens the depth of field. So depth of field is actually something the photographer can control. Aperture is measured in numbers called f-stops. It can be a little complicated, but just remember the bigger the number, the bigger, meaning wider, the depth of field. Okay, so a quick wrap up on light. There are two types of light, specular, and diffuse. Light generally comes from 3 distinct directions: the front, the side, or the back. And finally, adjusting your camera's ISO, shutter speed, and aperture to adjust the amount of light also can influence other qualities of the image, such as grain, motion blur, and depth of field. We've covered a lot of material in this short video series, and it might seem a little overwhelming at first. But just remember, to take great photos, you don't have to be a professional and you don't need a fancy camera. It's really a solid grasp of the basics of both composition and light that can most easily improve your photography. As we wrap up, let's reflect back on one of the first questions we asked: why take photos? For most of us, it's to enhance our memories of our travel experience. And we hope that you can do exactly that on your upcoming travel study program.